My name is Krista McKee Sampson, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors here at the Ottawa branch. First, I would like to begin by recognizing the First Nations on whose traditional lands our branch office is located. This is unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. On behalf of the branch, I am pleased to welcome you today to today's session on nutrition. It's titled The Big Three: Fat, Sugar, and Salt in Disease Management. We have over 270 participants online today. I want to give a warm welcome to our speaker this morning, Hélène Charlebois. Hélène is a personal nutrition and health coach with over 30 years of experience in this field. She's also a member and a previous board member of the Dietitians of Canada, and she continues to volunteer with them for various ongoing projects. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, Hélène. Today's session will cover managing fat, sugar, and salt in your diet to help with diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and more. Hélène will also discuss meal balancing, if new diet trends really work, and how to use your diet to boost energy throughout your day, something we could all use. Veuillez noter que cette session sera présentée en anglais, mais la participation bilingue est toujours encouragée. I want to give a special welcome to anyone here who is not yet a member of the association. We hope these webinars will help to inspire you to join us. And to our members, we hope that these webinars will encourage you to maintain your membership. We also encourage you to help us grow by participating in our annual mega recruitment drive. Recruiting a new member will enter you in a draw to win some amazing prizes, including a $10,000 travel voucher and $5,000 cash, each courtesy of Colette Travel and Bel Air Direct. We will make sure to give you all the details about this contest in our follow-up email. Finally, if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box throughout the session. Hélène will respond to them during the question and answer period at the end of the presentation. That's all for me for right now, so I'm going to turn the presentation over to Hélène. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour. Merci, Krista. Much appreciated. I will now share my screen. All right. I hope everybody can see that. I'm now moving forward. I think it's okay. If it's not okay, Antoine, let me know. So, bienvenue tout le monde. And I so appreciate these NAFR presentations, because when I was looking at the other presentations last year, I said, how come there's never nutrition? So I'm really happy to be presenting, because I know it's a big part, and just by the number of people who have registered. So we're going to talk about, I'd like to just shed more light on the fat, sugar, salt, and we'll talk about disease state management as well. So I am a registered dietitian. You do have coverage for me through your medical insurance if you are a federal employee or a retired federal employee. I am in Ottawa, but I am available. I do all my sessions virtually. I actually let go of my office. And so here I am doing these virtually. There's my website, so feel free to visit it. And at the end, the last slide, I'll give you how to contact me. So our agenda today, thank you, Krista. She went through it, but we will be talking about various things. And I encourage you, even in the chat today, if you have other things at the end of the presentation, because we're talking about topics for 2025, to see what else is of interest. So this is the predicament we're in. We know why should you eat and be healthier? Why? What's the big deal, right? I love my little pictures, by the way. We eat for a variety of reasons. Some people eat for performance, energy, vitality, longevity, because we've proven that if you have a healthier diet, you will no longer live longer, but live longer with vitality and energy and self-care. And maybe many of you are caregivers yourself, and you need self-care. And it's always important for the caregiver to take care of themselves as well. Eating for entertainment, travel, vanity. It's not, don't be ashamed if you want to look your best all the time. Eating for better sleep, which we know that that's all combined. Eating for stress management. Sometimes we eat that chocolate cake for stress management. Improve mental health. There's recent research that just came out this week again, saying that basically you are what you eat as far as mental health goes, and a healthier diet certainly helps with the brain function. Eating for disease state management is what we're going to be talking about today. Disease, hypertension, heart, but there are many other disease states out there. Right now, the anti-inflammation diets, anti-inflammatory, we're seeing the young population having a lot of rheumatoid arthritis at a young age. We're having them having autoimmune issues. And you know, that's a lot of it to do with that inflammation marker is your diet. And disease prevention. Is it in your genes? Maybe, partly, but it's also, there's a huge part of your diet and your exercise program. But what exactly is a disease? Oops, sorry. I'm just going to move this. So it's a condition of the living animal or plant or one of its parts that impairs normal functioning and is typically manifested by distinguishing signs and symptoms. So maladie, sickness, infectious disease, but is it genetic or is it self-inflicted, right? And in society today, a lot of it is self-inflicted. We do have genetic as well. There we go. So the big three, we're going to talk about diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. And that's why I picked fat, sugar, salt, okay? Because they will touch all these topics. But what is going to help better manage these disease states? And look at all these. Some people say it's weight loss. Some people say, well, I'm on medication, so who cares? And I think in North America, and certainly in Canada, we depend a lot on medications. And just to note that pharmaceuticals, big industry. Insurance, medical insurance companies, big industry. So you've got these two fighting right now because the pharmacology, pharmacy, the pills and potions that we take, they want you to continue taking them because you're making them rich. But your medical insurance wants you to decrease your medication so that they don't have to pay out as much. So how can we do that? And I, for one, would like not to be on any medication as I grow old, right? Because there's side effects to everything and there's risk factors. Exercise, how are you going to manage the disease? Exercises helps a lot. Sleep helps a lot. Stress management helps a lot. But today we're going to talk more about food and better nutrition because all of these will help better manage disease states. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a few. Respect the body to treat the mind. And that's so true today, especially with the talk of mental health. Nutrition matters in Health Matters. And I do have some, well, not some of my clients, because once they get to me, because I'm a fee-for-service dietitian, they've already gone through the steps that they want help, right? But some people just say, oh, I'll just take my medication and I'm not going to worry about it anymore. I'm not going to worry about my diet. And like I said, medication comes with a lot of side effects. Let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. And that was said by, was it Aristotle way back? Truth or myth, you are what you eat. And we know without a shadow of a doubt today that that is the truth for sure. So this is call to action for everyone. It's en français on the bottom. Just imagine if everybody, and don't forget Canada, we have socialized medicine, right? So you are paying, you're trying to be healthy and not be on medication and stay healthy, but you're paying for the other person who's not so healthy, right? So we all have to work together. So call to action. I want everybody to try and eat 2 to 3 fruit every day. Okay, 2 to 3 fruit. A serving's half a cup, no air. So if you could picture applesauce at half a cup, okay. But if you picture like strawberries or raspberries are round and have a hole in the middle. So it's probably 2/3 of the cup by the time you squish out the air. And then I just want half your plate vegetables at lunch and half your plate vegetables at dinner. Now, does that sound so hard? Do you know if we all just did this, just imagine how much disease state management we could have. And so I don't care if it's a dill pickle on your plate. I don't care if it's gherkins. I don't care if you've made an effort to get some olives out and opened a can of, I don't know, hearts of palm because you have nothing in your fridge, because that's what I'm doing That's what I'm doing these days. I've done groceries. So I am opening cans of cream corn and cans of corn and anything I can find to put that half plate vegetables. So anything is healthy. And it also reduces the portion size of everything else because we eat with our eyes. So if your plate is full and half of it's vegetable, you will be satisfied. But these are very, very easily available today. If I said right now, if you're at work, well, no, you're all retired, but to go buy a bag of chips in your neighborhood, let's say, how long would it take you? Fairly easy. But to go buy an apple, unless you live near Farm Boy, right? So these things are much more readily available. I do see more fruits and vegetables available in dépanneurs and things like that. And at hotels, when you check in, there's sometimes a basket of apples, and I usually grab a couple because I know it's so hard to come by. Now we're going to talk about fat, sugar, salt. We're going to talk about definitions, and allow me to explain a little bit more about this. So all about fats. So we have trans fatty acids, we have saturated fats, we have monounsaturated fats, and we have polyunsaturated fats. Which are the good fats? Which are the bad fats? Let's start with trans fatty acids. Did you know that we have 0 trans fatty acids in the Canadian marketplace today? Most people don't know that. If you look on any label, and what it is it's a food stabilizer, is trans fat. So they'll put it in crackers and cookies and cereal and things like that, packaged foods, chips, frozen desserts, pies, things like that, as a stabilizer, and it increases the shelf life. So we had a trans fat task force many years ago, and saying, if you want to sell to Canadians Mr. Lay's potato chips, you cannot have any more trans fats. And they said, oh, it's going to be, the cost will go to the consumer. But many Scandinavian countries, many European countries now have this. So did you know that most people don't know we have 0 trans fats in the Canadian diet? Why? Because the policy became legal in Canada the same month that cannabis was legalized. The same month. So what happened, the cannabis legalization just swallowed the whole trans fat thing. So now that you know, trans fat 0, except you'll see in yogurts, ruminant animals produce natural trans fat. So you may see on yogurts or cheese trace, like it'll say trace, but apparently research tells us the trans fats that are made in this way, we've been consuming them for so long that our bodies, it doesn't block our arteries, not those trans fats, but the man-made trans fats do. If you go to the US, though, you better read your labels and watch your trans fats, because a minute amount of trans fats will block your arteries, much more than the saturated fats. So I hope I made it clear about trans fats in Canada. Saturated fats block your arteries. Those are the things that are solid at room temperature. And we all know, the meats of the world, chips, beaver tails, Tim Hortons, things like that, all have trans fats, even though, saturated fats, even though it was a mono and polyunsaturated fats, like potato chips are cooked in vegetable oil, but the high temperature will turn certain amount of the trans fats into saturated fats. You'll notice you'll put olive oil in your pan and you're going to stir fry, I don't know, a bunch of vegetables. And then you're going to go serve, and then you're going to go eat your vegetables. And when you come back to clean the pan, there's little white globules. Well, those are trans fats because the heating process has turned not all, but some of the unsaturated fats into trans fats. Okay. But, we can't help that because we are heating this. So we try and minimize our trans fats as much as we can because they will cause your arteries to block. And that's why there's more move towards plant-based diets today, because we're trying to get away, or just reducing a lot of that red meat in our diet. And also chicken. We have to be careful because we eat a lot of chicken now in North America. So that as well, it seems to be causing some problems. As before, we ate it once or twice a week. But now, since we're trying to reduce the red meats, we're going higher in chicken. So it's causing a few problems that we're seeing now. And that's recent research that we've seen. What about coconut oil? Well, coconut oil isn't the health thing that everybody says it is. And pay attention here. So it is solid at room temperature. So it's not butter or saturated fats, but it's not the monounsaturated fats and the vegetable oils that are clear. So it's kind of in the middle. So even if you have to still watch the the consuming coconut oils. If you want to cook with it because of the flavor, that's fine. But some people eat it, slather it, do everything with it. It'll still cause some high cholesterol values if you eat a lot of it, okay? So the monounsaturated and then the polyunsaturates, they're the ones liquid at room temperature, okay? So anything that's liquid at room temperature is healthy enough. As soon as you heat it, for example, olive oil is not meant to be heated. Olive oil is meant to be used in salads, in cold things. You can put it on your vegetables just before you eat if you've cooked your vegetables. Because if you're cooking with olive oil, it's got a very low smoking point. So you will turn it to burning quite quickly. So I mix at my house canola and olive together when I'm going to be doing some frying, because the canola oil has a much higher smoking point so that you can stir fry things in a small amount of oil better. Okay, so these are the healthy fats. Polyunsaturates, so the salmons of the world, the walnuts, the flax seeds, very healthy fats as well, but you still need to watch the consumption of this. It's 100 calories per tablespoon. So I had a client, wasn't losing weight, couldn't figure out. So she's Mediterranean and her diet's really good. And then I said, well, how much olive oil do you consume? She goes, oh, I don't know, every day. And I said, well, a full liter, how long does it last? She goes, oh, about 3-4 weeks. And I went, oh, okay. That means that could be a problem, right? Because that liter of olive oil, so she's having a cup or 250 liters a week. That's a lot. So the calories do add up. Okay. I'm just putting that out there. Now we're going to switch to sugar. Now this is very important as well. I hope I made sense of the fats. If I haven't, if you have other questions, please put them in the chat. We have 3 different kinds of sugar: intrinsic, natural, and added, okay? Intrinsic means it's in the food. Drives me crazy when people say, oh, I don't eat apples because there's too much sugar. Like, please. Or I don't eat carrots because there's too much sugar. Please, eat your carrots. We're getting into the season that all of our fresh root vegetables are coming out, the rutabagas and the turnips and the parsnips and it doesn't matter. We don't eat enough vegetables as it is in Canada. Half your plate at lunch and half your plate at supper, please. Okay? Don't worry about if Mother Nature put the sugar there. It's in there. It's intrinsic. It's untouched. So please eat them. Natural, slightly touched, I call this, okay? So that's your maple syrups of the world, your honey of the world. It's just to make it edible, right? So they're still natural, but don't kid yourself. People say, oh, I take agave, which you pay a lot of money for. Once that liver gets hold of sugar, it doesn't care where it's from. It doesn't care how much you paid for it. And we've done the research on this. We know once the liver gets any type of sugar in, it just does the same thing. Sugar is sugar. Okay, so you're going to buy different sugars for the taste that you like, but again, be careful of the amounts because your liver doesn't care. Okay, I want to make that clear because some people say, I have agave, it doesn't affect you. Yes, it does. The problem is our added sugars in our food industry, and we know that. Okay, so the added sugars, So added sugars, I wish if you're in the US and you read a label, they have sugar, added and natural, or natural and added. I wish we had that in Canada. The dietitians in Canada fought the government on that. We wanted a separate line for the two and we lost. So when you're looking at sugar, like a bag of baby carrots, it'll say sugar, I don't know, 12 grams. Well, it's intrinsic. And so that's what we're telling the government. It's gonna deter people from eating sliced apples that are in a little package. You're not going to get an ingredient list or a label on a fresh apple, but you will get it if it's sliced in a package, right? So please use your judgment. You're smart enough, okay? The added sugars are the things that are artificially added to foods. But sugar is a preservative. We know that in jams and things like that. Okay, so I hope I made sense of all the different sugars that are out there. Salt is salt. Oh, but I buy Himalayan salt. It is still salt. Salt is salt is salt is salt. So paying all that money for Himalayan salt, there's different kinds of salt in their sizes. So you'll have kosher salt, you'll have some rock salts, you'll have fine salts, and that's more what is needed in a recipe. For example, if you're going to cure a salmon because you want to smoke, like you want to do like a cured salmon, you will use a large salt because You want it just to sit on the top and you don't want it to penetrate. But if you're going to have like a tomato and you're going to slice your tomato, you're going to want to use a little bit of fine salt and not a rock salt because you want it to penetrate into the food. So there's different salts. There's a whole chapter. I have a book called The Food Chemistry, and it's really interesting. So there's 50 pages on different salts and what to do with them and what are they best for. But salt is salt, okay? 1 teaspoon of salt is 3,500 milligrams of sodium. Just because something is not salty does not mean it doesn't have sodium. A thing is salty simply because it's sodium and chloride attached, okay? So you still need to read labels on sodium contents. So here, I should fix this slide actually. When I do 2,000 milligrams per day, that's sodium, not salt, okay? So when Health Canada said, okay, we're going to put a cap at 2,000 milligrams a day, in the US it's 2,300. Now you dietitians go out and sell the gospel to everybody. But how do you do that? What does that mean, 2,000 milligrams a day? I said, well, how am I going to teach that to my clients? I don't know. So I've broken down into meals and then foods. So here's a call to action for everybody. Go into your cabinet this weekend, okay? And any food item per serving that's 200 milligrams or more of salt, put it on the counter, of sodium, sorry. Put it on the counter. So take out all, of course, soy sauce and most of your condiments, put them on the counter, but look at even cereal, believe it or not. Raisin Bran has 360 milligrams of sodium in 3/4 of a cup. Doesn't taste salty, but it's in there. So have a look at your breads and crackers and all that, and anything over 200 milligrams for that food item, put it on the counter. Have a look at them. Show your kids, show your spouse. So all these are pretty high sodium. Doesn't mean you can't have them. It means that you can have them, but your other things in the meal should be lower. And that's why I put 500 milligrams per meal. So that should get you to 2,000 milligrams per day. You see? So 200 milligrams per food item. And then so your whole meal is no more than 500-600. So that by the end of the day, you don't get more than 2,000. Does that make sense? That's how I do it anyways. Okay, so we're doing so it starts on your basic ingredients and what you have in your pantry. But if you do want a ham sandwich, don't have a V8 with it. Have a glass of milk, okay? There is some research now that the calcium molecule, well, it gets leached with sodium, but it also, there's something in calcium that will affect blood pressure in a positive way. So if you're going to have something salty, maybe have a yogurt with it. As a dessert, you know what I mean? Because there's something about, we're not sure what. We said, well, is it the vitamin D that's added? We don't know what it is, but we know that dairy products will offset a little bit of the hypertension or the elevated blood pressure results of eating a higher salt diet. And not everybody, we're doing genetic testing now on people, and you need a genetic marker. If you have one specific genetic marker, and I forget what that is, in nutrigenomics, even if you lower your salt, it won't work. It's rare in people, but there's some people that you just have high blood pressure. Of course, genetics do play a factor, but some people are just sensitive to salt, and you could get tested if you want. Nutrigenomics, that's a company in Toronto, but just to see if you're sensitive to it or not, especially if your medication isn't working. Okay, that was salt. So what is the difference between processed and ultra processed? Because ultra processed is often in the news today, okay? So processed foods, again, are slightly touched. Why? Because you can't eat them if they're not touched, right? Like cereals, for example, like she's pouring some bran buns in her bowl there. Well, you can't go buy a piece of wheat and eat it. You can't go buy a piece of rye and eat it. So they have to be slightly processed for us to be able to eat it, right? Frozen foods are flash frozen. These are slightly processed because they have to be for edible, but they're still healthy, okay? It's the ultra processed ones that are the problem. All those things that you're reading ingredients and you can't spell them, those are the ultra processed. Anything pretty well in a box. The frozen food aisle is exploding because people want more convenience foods. Do they need to be ultra processed? No, they don't. Let's talk a little bit about air fryers. I'm just going to write myself a note quickly because I should put a slide in there. Talk about air fryers. People ask me, what about air fryers? Well, I'll tell you, I have one. But I bought one that's more of a, it's actually a toaster oven, and that I could broil, I can air fry, I could roast, I could do different things. I can even toast in it. Um, and then my husband, when he goes to Costco, because he's retired now, so he does the grocery shopping, and I hate going to Costco. It's just a zoo. I go once in a while to see what my clients are eating because everybody goes to Costco, but I just find it a zoo there. But and we've proven the more you buy, the more you eat. The more you have in your house, the more you eat. So everything's so big at Costco, right? Anyways, um, so he comes home with like chicken fingers. We never bought chicken fingers before, ever. And now he comes home with chicken fingers, and I go, why? He says, well, we have an air fryer. So yes, you're not using as much oil, but we're buying foods that we never did before that are processed or ultra processed. So interesting behavior, isn't it? Interesting behavior. So it's not that the air fryer is not healthy, it's that you tend to buy things that you weren't buying before. It's true. Think about it. The biggest thing is we need to swap from products to produce. And I don't know if you know Dr. Yanni Friedhoff. He's BMI, the Bariatric Medicine Institute in Canada here in Ottawa. And he does a lot with weight management. And what I always say, let's switch more to plant-based. And that's quoted by me. And it's not about being a vegetarian. That's not what I'm saying. It's that you need 2 to 3 fruit every day, half your plate vegetables at lunch, half your plate vegetables at supper. We're talking about fruits and vegetables, which are plant-based, which are Mother Nature. And then, try a vegetarian meal once in a while. They're just wonderful. It's so nice to be able to open like I have canned beans right now on my counter because I'm going to have that for lunch. Anyways, I'm going on a trip soon, so I'm trying to, not buy a lot of fresh groceries in case you're wondering why dietitians are eating all this canned foods. I don't want to buy too much produce and fresh stuff these days. And I'm trying to empty out my fridge. So that's why. But you still need to have your plate vegetables at lunch and supper. So it's important to have some canned, frozen, and fresh all the time on hand because you never know when you're going to need them. Life-changing health habits, it's not one size fits all. So when I talk to my clients, it depends on which stage they are. I'm sure you've heard of the stages of change. There's 5 stages of change, right? And the last stage is relapse because, we do have Christmas and your birthday and holidays, right? So first you need the knowledge. And I know I'm speaking to a group that has high knowledge as far as health, because first you've been around longer than, a 20-year-old. And second of all, you've done some research probably. And as we age, we tend to go, wait a minute, I'm not immortal. Wait a minute, my mom had diabetes at 55. My dad had a heart attack at 60. My sister died of whatever at age 58, So as we get older, we go, I better just start taking better care of myself. So you have knowledge and being aware. People aren't aware. People have no idea what they're eating. It's really interesting. I challenge you, go to a food court and just look at people, how they eat. It's really not very pleasant. I like to understand things and what's going on. Goal setting, we'll talk about in a minute. And application, are you really ready to do that? And you need some support because I always ask my clients, like, so I have a questionnaire and who do you live with and who's there and all that. And are they willing to support? Because you know as well as I do, if Claude, my husband, brings home a bag of Twizzlers, which is one of my danger foods, I will eat it. So I ask him, unless I ask you to bring it, please don't. I love you, thank you, but don't. So pick one, pick 2. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start on your snacking? Do you want to start maybe on fiber? That's maybe something we'll do in 2025. We're just talking about that, more about fiber and gastrointestinal and what's going on with probiotics and all that kind of stuff. Is it more about caffeine, alcohol? We're blamed a lot with us baby boomers going, oh, well, you guys just drink too much. So where do you want to start? Pick one thing. And because you know where you need to make some changes. So that's what it's about, is picking one thing or 2. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's out there with obesity, and we are calling it the pandemic in the 21st century. Now, let me tell you one thing. Diabetes, type 2 diabetes, is 94% weight related. We could wipe out type 2 diabetes basically on the face of the earth if we could deal with obesity and being overweight. Think about those. 89% of sleep apnea is weight related. Think about that. How many of you have a CPAP? Not everybody, not everybody. I have thin clients who have CPAPs. But what do we do? $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a CPAP machine instead of putting money into helping you be healthier in general. And sometimes people don't lose weight, but they are healthier. My client just before this, he's losing weight very slowly, but his blood sugars are better managed now. We're working on the blood pressure. That's our next thing. But I think he needs to change medications. But once he loses even 10 or 20 pounds, he won't need medication anymore, right? So we really need to address this. So the MIND diet is a big diet right now, which is the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet combined. And the DASH diet is a dietary approach to reducing hypertension, to S, what's the S to? Anyways, DASH. A dietary approach to supporting it's supposed to be reducing hypertension. I don't know. So it's more like the SALT and the Mediterranean. And now there's a lot of talk about dementia. And the research is coming out, and that's why these omega-3s is the next line, and the DASH diet in the Mediterranean. If there's dementia in your family, now they're saying that you should start omega-3s 20 years prior to the onset of dementia. I started taking omega-3s at the age of 60. Please eat fish 3 times a week, but sometimes I can't. So if I eat fish today, I don't take my omega-3. I take it at bed. Okay, I take it at bedtime. So because then I burp fish all day if I take it earlier, you know what I mean? So at bedtime, I take it. Like I had tuna yesterday for lunch, so I didn't take my omega-3 last night. So that's how I do it. But please look at more fish-based diets, read about the Mediterranean, read about the DASH diet, and put them all together. And these are anti-inflammation diets as well. Keto is still around, but a true keto diet is a high fat diet. It'll help you lose weight, but most people, it's more like a low carb diet now. And when people say low carb diet because they're on keto, and I say, well, it's more of a low carb because to be in ketosis is really, really difficult. And you need to stay in ketosis for a long time because if you have one bite of birthday cake, you'll go out of ketosis, and people have had strokes. So we need to be careful when we're talking about keto. So it's more of a low carb, but I tell people, please, 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 fruits and vegetables are all carbohydrates, right? Well, a couple fats like the olives, coconut, avocado have some fat, but mostly carbohydrates. So please, please, please eat these, right? Because they're the antioxidants, the anti-cancer, the anti-inflammation, okay? Intermittent fasting does work. It doesn't work in probably more our population. It doesn't work because we're 3 squares a day. It works tremendously for the gamers who are up all night. And it works tremendously for people who have a hard time with night eating. Okay, this works. But people who just eat their 3 squares a day, it has more to do maybe with their afternoon snack than anything at night. Of course, plant-based, you're only going to see that more and more and more. And eating responsibly, you're going to see that a lot more, especially with the Gen Zs coming up and the next generation after that. They will want to save the planet. They want to make sure that they're not eating too much. So we're hoping this will bring down obesity. I'm just going to eat my share because there's only so much, lentils and wheat to go around. All right. So you're going to see those. Just quick notes about supplements. Les suppléments. It's a lot in the news today. Do they work? Really work? Number 3 is deficiencies, des carences. That's the first thing you really need. Do you have a deficiency in calcium? Osteoporosis, we're at terrible there's too many people with osteoporosis in their 70s because your maximum bone mass was at age 35. We didn't have that research back then. So I'm dealing with a lot of osteoporosis. So first, or iron deficiencies in young women. So first we need to look at les carences, at the deficiencies. And then remember, we eat foods and not nutrients. So we try to clean up the diet and then give the supplements, or give the supplement first, like I try and do an assessment. Osteoporosis.ca, osteoporosis.foundation have 2 questionnaires there. Just fill them out. You'll see how much calcium you're eating in a day, and do you need a supplement? Okay. People do vitamin cocktailing when they don't need to. It's more because we eat foods and not nutrients. You can't replace an apple. Pharmaceuticals they try and put in a multivitamin, but first you need to assess your diet. Okay, so get assessed. A little bit about calcium. We want 1,200 milligrams per day per person. with supplements included in that. So that's why if you go to those websites I talked about, there's one on the bottom right now, osteoporosis.ca, have a look at how much are you consuming. Calcium carbonate is better absorbed than citrate, but it's hard on the stomach. So sometimes I'll go with a citrate with an older person that has, or people with proton pump inhibitors like the pantoprazole of the world and the Nexiums. So sometimes you can't digest that calcium very well. So again, be assessed. Don't forget the vitamin D. Okay. I put myself an alarm so I know how much time I have left. Your vitamin D3, everybody, call to action, lift your hand. Everybody needs to be on D3, 1,000 international units per day. Every Canadian over the age of 12. If you're under the age of 12, you get 400, which you can buy drops for your kids, because we don't get enough sun, even at the closest sun of the day, which is June 21st, 20th. We still don't get, we're not on the right axis of the earth. So we urge people to please supplement with some vitamin D. Vitamin K, you can get it in a lot of food, so we don't usually supplement that, and that does help the absorption. But we have to remember things that leach too much sodium, too much caffeine, too much alcohol, all those pops, whether they're diet or regular pops, soda pop, it leaches, okay? If you're gonna be on a magnesium, see the third bullet, buy a glycinate or a biglycinate, okay? No more than 400 milligrams per day. Some of them are mixed magnesium, so you get citrate, oxide, all that stuff. They can give you diarrhea, so you got to be careful. The old milk of magnesia or mom, very, very harsh on the system, and it gives you, it flushes you out. So you want to go with a glycinate or biglycinate, and you take this at bed. I take my calcium at bed, and I take 1 calcium a day, unless I've had a lot of dairy today. Sometimes if I'll have yogurt in the morning and then I'll have some cheese and then, oh, well, we're going to go for an ice cream cone this afternoon because it's summer. Then I kind of play, and I had some broccoli and I played in my head, and then I won't take it tonight if I've had more, but often every night I pretty well take a calcium supplement. I'm scared to death of osteoporosis, and I'm scared to death of dementia. Those are 2 things, because you want to be strong as you get older. Okay, so this is just quickly, I wanted to just go over some things that are in the media and just, to help you manage those 3 big disease states as well. So we talked about vitamin D3, and then we also talked about omega-3s, and I can't stress enough, one of the presenters said, why not take omega-3s? Like, what's the problem? It's not going to make you sick. But if you're on blood thinners, they will make your blood thin. So I'd love to work with cardiologists to reduce your blood thinner, because we're taking omega-3s, but we're not at that stage yet. We're at that stage now before going to diabetes medications. A lot of practitioners will actually go see a dietitian first, see what we can do with the diet, and then we'll put medication if we need to, as opposed to starting medication, then we need to take them off anyways. We're not there yet with blood thinners. But listen to your cardiologist, and do ask your pharmacist. If the pharmacist is your best knowledge, if you're on blood thinners and you want to start taking omega-3s, talk to your pharmacist. They'll go, okay, well, start on, 1 a day, or just go up with fish if you can have fish 3 times a week. And tuna and salmon at lunch matter, like, don't forget, oh, I can't make, oh, I only make fish once a week for dinner. Well, you can have it for lunch. It's great. Okay. So omega-3s are quite important. And vitamin D3, it's not only for bone health. We're looking at brain receptors, again, dementia, and we're looking at heart receptors. So it's very important, your vitamin D3. Sorry, I'm going to add that to the slide. Okay. So to sum it all up, it's just living towards a better health, little by little. Like, it's, because I've been doing this many years, and it's over 35 now. Thank you, Krista, for saying 30, but I better change my bio. And it's, what can we do at work to make it a little bit better? Okay, now that you're, well, some of you may still have contracts, maybe still working. At home, I tell people, please don't keep the junk in the house. Are you kidding? Do you think I keep Twizzlers in the house? I don't keep Twizzlers in the house because I'll eat them. If I want them, I'll go buy them. Not a problem. But in your regular groceries, I tell people, please eat healthier and do your groceries healthier. And then if you want ice cream, go get it. If you want to go to a Starbucks or Bridgehead or whatever and have one of those big cookies in your coffee, go buy it in the middle of the afternoon. That's not the issue. But if they're at home, you'll eat the bag. You'll eat the bag. You know it, and I know it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you will. At play, I can't believe when I read on CBC this week or on the weekend that the Canadian Tire Center for the Sens games, they're going to have healthier foods. I can't believe it. Every time I go there to watch whatever, I took my grandkids to Disney on Ice, and it was ridiculous. I couldn't buy anything healthy. Nothing. There's nothing healthy. But now we're going to start poke bowls, and they're going to start, I forget. I remember I went to one game one time, and Farm Boy had actually salads, and they had a whole booth there. Isn't that wonderful? So it's up to us to really want to, at play, have the things and try and not necessarily not have the unhealthy things. Like when I see a child playing like 3 minutes of hockey and they get this big Gatorade at the end, I'm like, and blue at that, at least buy the white one that's not so much full of dye. Okay, grandparents. In November, we're looking at doing another webinar, November 27th, on healthy holiday eating strategies. And I'll probably add a bit more about vitamins and minerals as well at that time, because I have a lot more to say about that. So I hope you tune in on November 27th for that. It'll be a lot of fun. I do have a handout to go with that. I'm not sure, Antoine, how that works, but I can send a handout. Oh, let me write that down. I better send a handout ahead of time. And it's a lot of fun and people could follow along. It's an oxymoron, right? Healthy holiday eating. To Antoine. But we can certainly do some damage control, and I'll talk all about that. Working with a dietitian, we know this. This is from pharmaceutical companies, and from this is actually stats from insurance companies, that for every dollar we spend on better nutrition, we can save $4. Like, imagine that. And we can decrease disabilities, and we can reduce a loss of productivity at work, help you manage and improve yourself, and just achieve your health goals that you want. I'm available virtually. There's my contact at the bottom. Go to my website and have a look. And I need to update a few things on there, by the way, but have a look, or you can, it's hcnutrition@rogers.com is my email address. Feel free to email me. I'm Googleable, so you can find me anywhere. And how am I doing for time? I went pretty fast, huh? Wow, I talked fast thinking I had a long presentation. So now we have a good 15 minutes for Q&As. So I leave it with Krista.
There you go. Apologies, I couldn't get myself off mute because I was looking at the questions. Apologies. So we have several questions coming in, and one suggestion also for a future, to include in a future event on how to manage or reduce cholesterol is a request. And so to start with the questions, starting from the top, does the recommendations of 2 or 3 fruits a day apply for diabetics?
Oh, such a good question. Of course, especially diabetics. But people with diabetes should never eat a fruit by itself. So you either have it like for breakfast with yogurt, granola, whatever, so it's within a meal. So whoever asked that question, write this down. Fat, fiber, protein. Fat, fiber, protein. So when you're eating something sweet, like a fruit, like peach season, wasn't it delicious this year? Like, it was delicious, and the pears are delicious, like, and the apples are delicious. Like, we've had a really good season for fruit this year. But if you eat a peach on its own, it's going to bring up your blood sugars. So you need to add either fat, which isn't so good, or maybe like yogurt with some fat in it. Yogurt also has protein, and fiber. So that's why, so have a handful of nuts. And when I mean a handful, your fingers have to touch, right? Bigger person, bigger hand, bigger portion. Smaller person, so a handful of nuts or seeds with that, a piece of cheese with your apple, something in the fat, fiber, protein category. So it'll, the sugar, the fruit will bring up, yes, I'm good, I stopped. The fruit will bring up your blood sugars, but whatever you add to it, whether it's a little bit of fat or fat and protein, or it could be fiber. Nuts have a lot of fiber and fat, so it'll round out that curve.
Great. Okay, our next question is, what is the healthiest or best oil to cook with?
Well, like I said, I mix olive oil and canola oil, avocado oil. You know, when I was a kid, those didn't exist, right? So that's also a monounsaturated. So I think the biggest thing is, you know, we know the palm oils, we know all that, all the saturated oils are not good, but it's all the amount. It's all in the amount. Like some people, I have a client fry. I said, "Oh, so you have fried eggs," but they literally poach it in olive oil. Well, no, you know, so it's more about that. So I know a lot of dietitians do. So I have my olive oil, I have my canola oil, and then I have a bottle that I mix the two. And then I use that for a lot of the cooking because it's just more, it browns more. And my husband, God bless him, but he makes doesn't cook a lot, but he does make a great chicken parm. But then he'll make like batches of it. And then it kept burning because he kept using olive oil and the house, you know. And finally I said, you know, you might want to mix it. I don't like to tell him what to do, but now that's what he does. And he uses more of the canola oil actually. So it doesn't burn it and fry it and make all smoke in the house. So as long any oils that's liquid at room temperature, and yes, there's a lot about genetically modified and all that stuff, but that's a whole other topic to talk about. But I think we're very hypocritical when it comes to genetically modified foods. When I was a kid, there was seeds in my watermelon, right? There was seeds in my oranges. Now you don't get that. Okay? So we like that part, but we don't like, you know, some of the other things. So we have to look at the whole food industry, and we're not going to have enough food to go around. And we know that within the future and the future generations. So we're trying to make farming more responsible and so that they can get larger yields. And maybe here in Canada, or maybe the people on this webinar have enough food, but a lot of people don't. So that's a whole other topic. But I hope I answered the question about the oils. And, you know, research the smoking points, research what they are, and then you'll see you can mix your olive oil. Because sometimes, like, you don't want to put olive oil in something like what was it the other day? Client used it in a carrot cake with pineapple in it. Ooh, it just tasted awful because olive oil has a taste. So I always tell my clients, go for the taste. Use a sesame oil if you're going to do, or coconut oil in Asian cooking. You know, mix it a little bit with your canola oil so that you don't get that smoking point. So maybe using more of the flavored oils to have the flavor of your cooking, and then add a little bit of canola, or even the avocado oils have a better, a higher smoking point.
Very good. Okay, now there's something more technical. Is textured vegetable protein, TVPs, healthy to eat?
Yes, of course. So TVP, textured vegetable protein, has been around a long, in my knowledge, when I was at school, like in the 70s and 80s, it's been around. We just didn't hear about it, right? So it's just a bunch of dehydrated vegetables that they've taken. Some of them do have protein in them because they've taken like edamames and soys and things like that. And it's just like, it looks like dehydrated little pellets. And then when you add water to it, you can make like a burger and things like that. So it's very versatile and it's shelf stable. So you can keep it in your cupboard and then just adding protein. So instead of making, well, that's okay. So let's try this. Buy some and then use half ground chicken or ground beef, and the other had TVP when you're making your next chili, because chili season is coming, or when you're making your next hamburger soup, or when you're making your next spaghetti sauce, and try it. You might want to make a small batch and then cook it up and see, and then you add, it doesn't really taste anything, so you have to add, I put some onion powder, some onion, some garlic, things like that to it. But yes, it's fantastic. It looks like ground beef when it's rehydrated. A lot of vegetarians use it, yes.
So, okay. We also have several questions about fake sugars, and in particular for type 2 diabetes. So I presume that's Splenda, stevia, agave, etc. What are you?
Such a good question. So just yesterday I was on a webinar about non-nutritive sweeteners. And we call them non-nutritive because they don't go in the body. Like they don't get absorbed. They go in and out kind of thing, right? So nutritive sweeteners are sugars that have some caloric value because, you know, if you're starving, you would like to have some sugar somewhere, right? Um, so again, it's portions. Again, it's portions. So I was spokesperson. I was never doing one-to-one counseling in most of my career. I was mostly a nutrition expert for companies. And I did a lot with stevia. I did a lot with back then, like you have to think about in the 80s, right? It was Sweet and Low that was coming out, the saccharins of the world. But right now, stevia, and I remember when I was speaking when it first hit the Canadian market, and I was doing some television around it, and they asked me, "Well, what do you feel about that?" And I go, "Well, you took a green leaf and turned it into a white powder. So how do I feel about that? Because in the spring, when you go to like buy your flowers to plant outside, buy a stevia plant. They're there, and it grows. It looks kind of like a thick basil, and then you take a leaf and it's sweet, right? So, and we used to at university we used to dehydrate it and use it in our teas and stuff with my roommates. It was quite fun. So I think it's more the portion sizes of what we're looking at, and it's detrimental mostly I think today to young kids. I see it a lot in products for children, from vitamins to cereal to because they're trying to cut back on sugar, and but there's still some health issues when you're dealing with drinking like 8 Diet Cokes a day, right? So it's not the sweetener, it's the 8 is the problem, right? It's not your 3 extra double at Timmy's that, it's not the stevia that you're putting in there, it's the 3 extra doubles, the 3. So it's working more about portion sizes at that point. There'll always be non-nutritive sweeteners. They will always be around for people with diabetes. People like the color that they like. It's usually a taste thing. So you like the blue envelope versus the pink one versus the yellow one. But really watch the amount that you're taking. And not only the little envelope, look at all the other products. So if you're drinking a lot of Diet Pop a day, I would certainly address that. If you're putting a little bit of the yellow, is your yellow what? Sweet and Low? No, Sweet and Low is pink. What's the yellow? The other one. Anyways, equal. So putting a little bit of that in baking and things like that because you want it to be more diabetic friendly. But a low fat brownie is still a brownie. A low sugar brownie is still a brownie, right? So that it's still not nutritious foods. And and I remember some of you, well, all of you, because we're all retired or almost, we remember the low fat craze, but it's low fat brownies. And remember those wow chips, the low fat chips, right? Because the molecule of fat was so big, you'd eat all the chips and you would poop it out at the other end, right? Well, they didn't stay on the market very long, okay? Because they're still chips. And plus, you were having a lot of really fatty diarrhea at that time. So again, it's more the portion. And I think the technology, like stevia and truvia and all that, has been around for a long time. Those leaves and the plants have been around a long time, but they turned it into a white powder. So, still be careful on that. And I think there'll be more and more information and research coming out. So I think the newer ones on the market are always better to have as opposed to the older ones because now we have more research around that. But again, it's portion size.
Now, the next question is going back to the sodium salt. What is the difference between sodium and salt? And is sodium intrinsic to any food item besides salt?
Good question. Intrinsic, yes. A boiled egg has 30 milligrams of sodium because sodium is part of us, right? Sodium is part of us. You have sodium, I have sodium. Your doctor checks your sodium, potassium, and your chloride in your blood when he's doing blood work. So anything from an animal product will have sodium in it naturally, but very low amounts, very low amounts. So when we're talking about salt, it's sodium and chloride. Okay, think of your grade 12 elemental table in chemistry, everybody, that big table. We have these elements that go together. And when they bind, well, how many of you have salted pools? Right? You pour salt in it, which is sodium chloride, and then you have a diffuser in your pool that will break the molecule, right? So eventually it's not salty anymore. It's only chloride left. So it doesn't taste salty anymore. But at the beginning it is because there's all this salt floating around. But as your diffuser or your molecule breaker, or whatever you call those things, there's a name for it, breaks the molecules to put the chlorine into your pool to keep it nice and clear, well, it doesn't taste salty. You'll notice at the beginning of the season when you pour the salt in, as opposed to the end of the season, It's not the same salt. Okay, so that's the difference. Sodium is the Na plus. Okay, that's a mineral and an element on the elemental table. And chloride is also, but when you combine it, it tastes salty. But sodium is very bitter. If you actually had a pile of sodium and then put your finger in it, taste it, it's very bitter. It's very, very bitter. So that's why you can't assume that a food is low in sodium just because it doesn't taste salty. You have to read the label. But there is some intrinsic, but like I said, 30 milligrams, who cares, in an egg? Okay, just think about us humans having sodium. So anything that has a life will have some sodium because it's part of our whole electricity, our electrolytes in the body. It's part of it.
Thank you. Now moving to protein. How much or how do you get enough protein on a plant-based diet? And then the second part of the question is there a protein powder you would recommend, and what kind of natural proteins you can use in a yogurt fruit smoothie? And
okay,
in particular, the question
so that's
in particular,
kind of a personal question, but I'll answer it. Were you on my first webinar? I actually talked about that. And the recording's still up, I think. So I would suggest that you go listen to it. And so listen, some of the power builders are vegan. The power lifters are vegan. Of course, you can get enough protein. You just have to calculate it, and you have to be smart. No, so protein needs are per your body weight. So you have to calculate your protein needs, and that's what I do for my clients, and then we distribute it. As far as, edamame, it depends. I love to be a pescatarian. So I love to eat vegetarian with fish. And, I'll have chicken maybe once in a while. Of course, a steak once in a while. Pork loins are delicious, but very rarely. That's just because there's a lot of cancer in my family, a lot of cancer everywhere. I'm the oldest living of my family right now, which is kind of scary because my older siblings have passed of cancer. So I'm very scared. And there's a lot of heart disease and diabetes. So that's my choice, and that I want to go that route. Protein powders, the problem is there's a lot of artificial ingredients, and people tend to abuse of the protein in there. And just yesterday, I had a new client, and we only need half a scoop because she already puts yogurt and milk and other things in her smoothie. So she really doesn't need a lot of protein powder. She's putting natural ingredients in there. There is Vega protein, and but we do know without a shadow of a doubt, the best absorbed protein source is whey. And that wasn't research done by the dairy farmers. It's independent research. Whey protein tends to get more in the muscle, but you don't want to have more than 20 to 30 grams at one time. So I do explain that in my webinar. And I think I'll bring it back maybe in the, just as a review for 2024 in the one in November. Oh, I'm going to write that down. The protein and carb review.
So now I'm switching to vitamin D. Understanding that the vitamin D3 purchased from Costco contains 2,500 IU. How much is too much? And if you're taking my multivitamins already, as like the over 50, should you still add more vitamin D3?
The more the merrier. Vitamin D, unless you're taking 30,000 per day, okay, 30,000. But, if I go away for the weekend, I don't bring my vitamins with me. I'm sure you forget them once in a while. The recommendations right now in Canada are 800 IUs for adults and 400 for children per day. But we know that's too low. So they're going to go up. And I just do 1,000 across the board. And then you have to do an assessment. Do you have osteoporosis? Do you have this? Do you have that? So taking 2,000, I don't think is a problem. I have a lot of my clients on 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 a day. I am naturally low in vitamin D. When I first had mine checked years ago, I'm always deficient, and I'm taking it every day. So I don't metabolize it well. So you can pay for a blood test for vitamin D. We don't do it anymore in Canada because we assume every Canadian's deficient. If you have more fat mass, vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, and it gets stuck in your body fat, believe it or not. So people who are scheduled for bariatric surgery, 100% are vitamin D deficient. Think about that. 100%, because vitamin D gets stored and stored and stored and it's just not available. So you can ask your doctor next time, I want a vitamin D. I'm always low. So I take 3,000. I was away this week and I didn't take it with me. So, I mean, to be very regimented that way, get outside. But when we get outside, we wear sunscreen now. We're getting into, I tell people, I take 1,000 when the clocks spring forward, and when they fall back, I take 2,000 a day. But that's just me. Okay. So, but the recommendations are 800 and 800 per day for adults, but that's too low.
Thank you. Okay, I'm mindful of the time. So as we're at 11 o'clock, so there are a few questions that are still unanswered. So please feel free to contact Helen by email to have your particular questions unanswered. Or to have your particular questions or your personal situation assessed. She can take appointments. So very good. So please feel free to reach out directly. So with that, thank you everyone for your participation. The Ottawa branch thanks you, Helen, for this wonderful presentation, which is recorded and will be posted to our website as well, so you can review as needed. Remember to look for our follow-up email. It will include information on how to assess the recording of today's session, as well as Helen's contact information. Please remember that you can invite non-members to attend our webinars and try us out as a guest. We have a great lineup of webinars coming up this fall, so please visit our website at NAFROttawa.com to register. And as Helen mentioned, her next webinar will be on healthy holiday eating on November 27th. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Helen. And we'll see you all at our next webinar.
Thank you. Bye.